Okay, guys, so today we're going to look at a document-based question from the 1700s here. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and pull it up. So this is actually from a few years ago, from 2005. The document-based question was, to what extent did the American Revolution fundamentally change American society? In your answer, be sure to address political, social, and economic effects of the revolution in the time period 1775 to 1800. Now I'm going to go ahead and stop there and go ahead and say this. Notice it's similar to the one we had yesterday. They give you specific categories. Okay, they told you economic, political, and social. So you already, if you're doing it, when you're doing your paragraphs, do a paragraph over each one of those three things. So they've already organized them for you. Sometimes they do that, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they say, tell us things that have changed or things that have stayed the same throughout this time period. If they do that, you need to develop your own categories. But by the way, those are some of the safest ones: economic, social, political. What's some other ones you could use? Yesterday we had religious. That was a category. Cultural, race relations, gender. I mean, like, there's a lot of different, you see, but I would always in your head have those ready so that if you're forced to kind of group documents together, you have those categories already on the ready so that you can put them there. Okay. So as we read through these documents, I want you to remember, we need to be organizing our thoughts on, are we going to use them as political, social, or economic? Okay. So the first one, by the way, right out of the gates, we have one that's not even a written source. It is a picture, or, well, not a picture, a drawing here. It's a woodcut of a patriot woman from 1779. Now, again, whenever you look at a document and you try to analyze it, I want you to remember HIP, historical context, intended audience, purpose, point of view. Now, by the way, when I say these four different ways to analyze a document, I don't want you to think that every time you've got to use all four. Okay? Use one of them. If one of them makes more sense to you, if you go, look, hey, it's clear, there's a purpose here, boom, I know what they're trying to say with this document, utilize that one. If you really don't know where they're going with it, if you don't think there's a real reason behind it or an intended audience, just do historical context, right? So these are just some options, because a lot of times if I say analyze a document, you're probably looking at me like, well, what does that mean, right? Utilizing HIP gives you some different ways to analyze that document so that you then can share it in the form of an essay. So let's jump back over to the document here. So what would you say, guys, can you give me any historical context over this document? What would you say is going on here that they're trying to show us? 1779, woodcut of a patriot woman. What would be significant about the context of this?
The American Revolution.
Yes, but not only the American Revolution. Thank you, Olivia, for saying the obvious there, right? Not just the American Revolution, but we have a woman who not only is being seen in a woodcut and described as a patriot, she's got a weapon in her hand. So, significance of that.
Everyone has to do their part in changing society.
Guys, in the late 1700s, a woman being involved in not just, as a nurse in a war or not just as providing food or something like that, but actually garnishing a weapon, that's pretty unique. Okay. So I think Olivia makes a great point there that women were involved in the war effort very directly. So much so that even in the military aspect of brandishing a weapon and potentially even serving. Now, you can't tell all of that from this, right? You don't know if she's serving in the army or if she's just ready, right? If they come at me, I'm ready to go. Regardless, you can absolutely take that away from here. So if you look at some of the other things that we could take away from this, you might see, again, going through our steps, intended audience. I don't know if there's any intended audience for this, right? She's just, someone made this just to document that this happened. Point of view, I would say it's somebody pro-American Revolution because they call her a patriot. If you weren't pro-American Revolution, what do you think you might call this? You probably wouldn't call her a patriot. You'd probably call her a
Rebel?
Yeah, rebel, traitor, right? You probably use a name that wasn't so altruistic or positive. So that's probably the point of view there. And again, I don't necessarily think there's a purpose except for showing what was going on at that time. So by the way, let's categorize it. Would you say this is political, social, or economic? What effects does this play into here?
I say social.
Social, because you're seeing a woman and what her role is in society. I think that's absolutely, you could use it as social. You could even argue it could be political too, right? That the politics of they didn't care if you were a man or a woman. If you wanted to serve, you were going to serve. They weren't going to stop you from doing that. So I think social is probably the best, but I could also see an argument there for political. But just notice what we're doing. As soon as I have this document here in front of me, I would be writing down, I would be commenting that, boom, this is probably going to be in my social category. So let's go on to the next document, okay? So here's document B. And guys, I'm going to read this out loud. I know some of you guys can see this just fine, but some of you are tuning on your phone. This is really small. So I'm going to read it out loud before we go over it. This is a Pennsylvania packet from 1779. Awake, Americans, to a sense of your danger. No time to be lost. Instantly banish every Tory from among you. Let America be sacred alone to free men. Drive far from you every baneful wretch who wishes to see you fettered with the chains of tyranny. Let them, where they may, enjoy their beloved slavery to perfection. Send them to the island of Britain. There let them drink the cup of slavery and eat the bread of bitterness all the days of their existence. There let them drag out a painful life, despised and accursed by those very men whose cause they have had the wickedness to espouse. Never let them return to this happy land. Never let them taste the sweets of that independence which they strove to prevent. Banishment, perpetual banishment, should be their lot. So he definitely
sounds like somebody was a drama queen.
Yeah, about to say, he definitely didn't mince words here, right? It was definitely very straight up. So what can we take away from analyzing this using one of the hip analytical tools?
The person really doesn't like Britain.
Well, point of view is easy, right? Point of view is from someone that is a patriot, a rebel. They are very, very anti-British rule. They want to, quote, banish every Tory from among you. I mean, they want them out. They want them gone. And by the way, a Tory, they're not just talking about British people. They're talking about people that support British people. So they want them out. So point of view is easy to pick up, right?
I think the purpose is to, because like he said at the very beginning, awake Americans. He's trying to tell the American people, hey, we need to get free from British rule.
Absolutely. I agree 100% that the purpose here is to really get people fired up. I mean, you can tell the passion in this speech. I mean, he starts off, awake Americans to your sense of danger. I mean, hey, y'all need to wake up. This is something you should be very upset about. Very good. So those just jump right out at you. If I wanted to take a step further back, Antoine talked about this yesterday as another way of saying historical context is like a big overview. The overview I would say here is like people aren't very happy, right? There's obviously discord. He's trying to keep people fired up. He's trying to bring people to his cause of people that are very upset. So we know that by 1779 that's building, and we know that from the other things we know about the American Revolution as well. So where would we put this? Will we put this in social, economic, or political?
Political.
Yeah, I could definitely see political, right? Because he's really talking about what this, I mean, when you talk about throwing out the Tories, you want a new form of government. Okay, so there's a political sense here that he's really pushing for. When he's talking about chains of tyranny, I mean, he's most likely referring to the government. The government are bringing the chains of tyranny upon them, right? So I agree. I think that's probably a really good one to put in the political realm. So we have the first one we put in societal. The second one we're putting in political. Let's move down to the third one. Guys, by the way, notice as we go through this, some of the documents are really, really short. I've seen documents that are one sentence long. I've seen documents that are 3/4 of a page long. So it differs depending on what they want to throw at you here. But by the way, you guys just tell me at any point in time if you guys want to stop or have a question. I know I'm moving through this pretty quick. I'm going to kind of pause here and just kind of look at everyone here across the screen and make sure I'm jumping back on here and looking at what you guys are telling me here. So if you need something or if I need to slow down or anything like that, shoot me something in the chat or just, hey, wave your hands at me there, or just open up your mic and holler at me here as we're going through these things. But I hope as we're moving, you're kind of getting a sense of, don't overcomplicate the way that you're evaluating a source. Think back, again, if you get stuck, just go through the HIP analysis and say, okay, well, I don't know what the historical context is, but I can probably tell who they're writing this to, what the intended audience is. So that's just something that you can always go back on to help you there. If you get stuck, like, I don't know what this document's saying, okay? So I'm gonna continue working our way through this. Document C, message to Congress from the Chickasaw Chiefs, July of 1783. When our great father, the King of England, called away his warriors, he told us to take your people by the hand as friends and brothers. It makes our hearts rejoice to find that our great father and his children, the Americans, have at length made peace, which we wish may continue as long as the sun and moon, and to find that our brothers, the Americans, are inclined to take us by the hand and smoke with us at that great fire which we hope will never be extinguished. Okay, so it's a little bit different take here, right? So we've got this from, notice it's from, just do the historical context here. It's from the Chickasaw Chiefs. So what are they thinking in the 1780s that we know?
Oh, the Americans are wonderful people. We're just going to get along so well.
Yeah, they know there's going to be disruption here, right? They know that there's going to be an issue with these people that have moved in. They've dealt with them now for a couple of hundred years. Notice at the end here they say, find that our brothers, the Americans, are inclined to take us by the hand and smoke with us the great fire, which we hope will never be extinguished. So they're saying, look, while we've had these issues, we also have got along with some of these groups of people. So overall, do you think this is a positive or negative view? Notice how he starts it here. When our great father, the King of England, called away his warriors, he told us to take your people by the hand as friends and brothers. Even though there's this disruption, even though there's a back and forth, it does appear that they're making this out, and you see this here, as children of the Americans have at length made peace, that they're saying, despite our frustrations and back and forth, we've really gotten along well with them at this time. Where does this fall into the categories here? Does anybody have any thoughts on that? Would this be political, social, or economic?
I say political. Again.
Yeah, I think you could say political, right? Because, the politics of the day of just getting along with, basically two different forms of government. You got the Indian tribes that have their own governments, and you have the Americans who have their government, right? You could say societal, right? I mean, the way we set up society, that Indians are going to live alongside Americans, that can be part of it as well. I don't think you see, again, notice to this point, we really haven't seen anything about trade or commerce yet. So I think that we're doing a good job of sticking these in those different categories here as we go. It is interesting to point out that the Native Americans are trying to figure out, how do we fit into all this, right? I mean, there's clearly the patriots that want their own country. There's also clearly the people that want to stay a part of Great Britain. But then you also have this group of Native Americans that really don't want to be caught in the middle of this, right? That they're trying to make sure, hey, if the Americans win, we don't want them to do anything. We want them to be happy with us. But if the British win, we also want them to be happy with us. So that's why they're playing this. You're probably wondering, why aren't they ripping all of these people for taking their land? Well, they're trying to watch how this plays out here at this point in time in 1780. Okay. So now let's look, and guys, sometimes these can be tricky. So the next one's actually part of a law. Okay, this is a statute at large of Virginia. So this is one of the laws in the state of Virginia in 1786. Be it enacted by the General Assembly that no man shall be compelled to frequent or support any religious worship place or ministry whatsoever, but that all men shall be free to profess and by argument to maintain their opinion in matters of religion. 1786, talking about religion, talking about religious worship. Give me some historical context. Why is this coming up at this point in time?
Isn't the First Great Awakening starting to happen? Or am I completely wrong time period?
Nope, she's right. First Great Awakening is going on. Okay, so we have these people that are talking about they want to allow more people in the churches. They want there to be more evangelism. Yesterday, we read a document that really talked about that there were some states saying, "Hey, you are going to go to this church if you're in this colony." So you see a pushback on that, right? That we don't want to force people to be of a certain faith or of a certain religious background. Okay, so that's historical context. As you're coming into the First Great Awakening, so you have religious people that are saying we need to be less constrictive. We need to be more open to people who are wanting to come into our faith. Yeah, I think that's good for historical context. So who do you think the intended audience? It's a law, right? So if you ever see a law, who do you think the intended audience is? It's the people that live there, right? I mean, that's the law. That's what they got to do now. And so when you look at point of view and you look at purpose, when you look at either of those, I think the point of view is going to be this is a group of people that are not wanting this really strict religion pushed on people. And again, the purpose is just to open things up so that people can have different religious beliefs and faith there that go forward. Now, where do you put this? Political, societal, or economic?
I say societal.
Why?
Because this is completely changing. Like America, based here, the Puritan colonies, where if you were not Puritan, you were kicked out of the colony. And America has always been like focused on religion. And now we have Virginia saying you don't have to be part of a religion. And this is changing the society at the time.
I think that's a really good point. I think that a lot of times people just go, oh, it's a law, it's political, right? You can make that argument too, that the politics of the time was to try to make religion less strict, less uniform, where you could have different churches. But Olivia's exactly right too. She could say it's societal. Look, this is the way society is looking. I can use this as an example that people aren't as strict in their religious beliefs. They're more open to people of different faiths by this point in time. And again, I want to also make this point here too, that I've tried to illustrate in your classes as well. There's a lot of historians that make the connection that in the late 1700s, you have people in churches that say, you can't tell me how to worship. If I want to go to a different type of church or worship differently, that's my decision. Notice how close that is to the political argument of the American Revolution, which is, I should be able to govern myself and the United States how we want. Great Britain, you can't tell me how to do this. I have individual rights. It's a very similar argument. And so the pastors and the preachers and the evangelical leaders of the 1700s, they use a lot of that same language to talk about their church as they do the political situation of the time. So if you ever, and again, remember, we're not just going over this as a question to be answered. I'm trying to kind of give you guys the high level overview of what was going on at the time. Jonathan Edwards, George Whitefield, these are two evangelical leaders that are saying, hey, you're in control of your religious faith, of your soul. Okay, if you do the things God says, you can be saved. Okay, so then why don't you believe that you have rights and you get to pick who your government leaders are? Like, that doesn't make any sense. You think that God gave you the power to choose how your soul is going to end up, but you don't think that you should have the power to vote for somebody? So just remember, that's an argument that goes on. So sometimes when you see something like that pop up around the American Revolution, that's what they're trying to get you to see. So okay, I wanted to make sure to make that point. So we covered that. Let's keep going. Now we have a clip from a speech. So this is good to kind of show you guys some of the different ways of, or some of the different documents they can send you here. So this is the United Indian Nations speech at the Confederate Council in 1786. Brethren of the United States of America, it is now more than 3 years since peace was made between the King of Britain and you, but we, the Indians, were disappointed, finding ourselves not included in that peace. For we thought that its conclusion would have promoted friendship between the United States and the Indians. You rekindled your council fires where you thought proper without consulting us, at which you held separate treaties and have entirely neglected our plan of having a general conference with the different nations of the Confederacy. Now, This really tells you a lot even about the previous document, right? So what are the Native Americans saying here? What were they hoping to have happen? After the American Revolution, as all this was going on, they thought when there was ultimately going to be a peace treaty signed that they would be included in that as well, right? That, hey, we played this right. We didn't take sides. We told you, we want to have a good relationship with both of you. So why are we left out here at the end? So that's something to notice when we talk about point of view and purpose. Now they're saying, hey, we did everything right, and you're still not going to allow us to engage in these type of treaties and relationships with this new government. So that's point of view, that's purpose. Again, the intended audience, who do you think they're trying to get to with this document? They're really trying to guilt the American politicians. Like, hey, we could have come out against you, we could have done these things, and here you are, you're still not going to participate with us the way we wanted. So that's, it's really unfortunate as we go through history. I know you guys know, and I always tell you that being in Oklahoma, we get the history of Native Americans throughout U.S. history, but a lot of other states, they really don't understand like how many different times Native Americans come to the table and say, okay, well now, you lied to us last time, right? You went back on what you promised last time, but this time, like, we did everything right? Like we tried to appease you, and you still aren't going to give us proper terms. You're going to see them flip the script in the Civil War. In the Civil War is where the Native American tribes go, forget this. South, you're going to go to war with the North, with the federal government. All right, we're joining the South because you guys keep lying to us. And so that's going to be terrible for them as well, because when the South loses, and most of them didn't own slaves, so it wasn't like they really cared about that. They really wanted the government to fall because the government had been lying to them all these years. But then when the South gets beat, you think the federal government cares anymore about cutting them a fair deal? They're like, nope, sorry, you shouldn't have joined up with them during this. So don't forget, that's an ongoing theme throughout, the history of the United States, is the way Native Americans are being treated. And obviously we're still talking about that today, about what the proper thing for the American government to do in regards to Native Americans. And again, we're here first, right? So that's an interesting kind of angle they throw here to give you those two sources from Native Americans. Here's another picture. It's actually a medal, okay, from 1786. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't say so. The last document, what would we put it, social, economic, or political?
I think it's tough because it is political, because they're trying to get American politicians to include peace with the Native Americans, and they haven't. But it also changes the Native American society from here on out.
Yeah, I think you could argue either one, but I think political, they're definitely trying that political angle with that, right? They're trying to say, look, hey, come on, politically speaking, you should throw us a bone. Like, you should give us something at this point. Like, what do we got to do here? Yeah, I agree. Let's put that one in political. So let's move on to 6, or document F here. It says venerate the plow. And so you see them out, looks like some oxen there. And they got the plow going behind them there. Nice hair there, Antoine. It's looking good, looking fresh. So what do you guys think there? What would you say about this source? By the way, I think we got our first economic source, don't we? I think that's fair to say, right? This is showing kind of the way some people are making a living. What do we mean by the term? Okay, I'm sorry. I'll just shut up and let you guys answer here. So what do you think? The Philadelphia Society for the Promotion of Agriculture. So that kind of tells us what the intended, or what the purpose is, right? What are they intending to do? Okay, don't make it too hard. They're intending to promote agriculture. Okay, they're trying to tell people that this is what you should be doing. I mean, that we should continue to support agriculture, farmers. That's what we need to be doing here. Venerate, what's another word for venerate? You probably don't use that a lot. It means to like respect or give respect to. So they're really promoting agriculture. So why would they be promoting agriculture in the late 1700s? What's going on? What's the historical context? Why would they be doing this around the time of the American Revolution? Think about what the British are threatening them with. If they're going to A, tax them more, B, cut off trade to the colonies, you know, C, tell other countries not to trade with them, don't let any of that happen. Economically speaking, you might be in a lot of trouble. So when you see about the American Revolution, first of all, you're seeing this promotion here of agriculture. Hey, you guys need to be growing. We want you to continue growing your own crops. We want you to continue to sell these things in the marketplace. But number two, I want you to even think about kind of Thomas Jefferson's view for America. Remember, we talk about this happens very early on, and we really see it played out. I mean, it's a little forced, but you could even say this about a lot of politics today. Thomas Jefferson was out for the plight of the poor farmers in America and said, if everybody owns a farm, if everybody will invest in this type of work and help the poor farmers, everybody can at least have enough to get by, right? If you're a farmer, that means you got food to eat, but you also have food to sell. No one can ever take that from you. And then you have the other view, which is Alexander Hamilton, who says, hey, we need to get big factories, big business. We need to look like London. Like, we need to get all this going on. And that's a debate that happens once the American Revolution is over. And so notice the kind of argument being made here that economically, what should we look like? We should be an agricultural society. We're about to have our own nation. We want to promote agriculture, not big business, not factories, not things like that, but agriculture. So I would definitely put that one in economic. And I definitely wanted you guys to remember that when we're talking about moving forward, and we're talking about what are things going to look like as a theme throughout United States history, I think that that's one of the things we have to remember, is that there's a group of people that want to help and push forth and really support farming and agriculture. And then there's a group that wants to push forth big city factory type development. So you absolutely see that here. Sorry, I did a lot of talking, didn't let you guys talk on that one, but I would put that one in the economic category there. So we have a letter here. And again, I always find the letters fascinating, from Abigail Adams to Thomas Jefferson, because Jefferson's there. He's a central figure here during this time politically. And guys, Abigail, while she's not like, holds an official position, she is very influential to both her husband, John Adams, and to Thomas Jefferson. They ask her a lot during this point in time, and you see a lot of her suggestions really taken into account. So let's look at this letter from Abigail Adams, that's John Adams' wife, to Thomas Jefferson. They were friends. Thomas Jefferson and John Adams were really good friends. Thomas Jefferson's wife dies, so they all three kind of become friends, and so they would often write together too. So that's kind of the background there, if you can remember that. With regard to the tumults in my native state, which you inquire about, I wish I could say that report had exaggerated them. It is too true, sir, that they have been carried to in so alarming a height as to stop the courts of justice in several counties. Ignorant, restless desperadoes without conscience or principles have led to a deluded multitude to follow their standard under pretense of grievances which have no existence but in their imagination. Some of them were crying out for paper currency, some for equal distribution of property. Okay, so let's just, before we even get any further, what is Abigail talking about? What is she saying here? What's going on in her state?
Which document is it?
Document G, this one right here. She's saying she wishes the reports were exaggerated, but there's an alarming height she mentions restless desperados without conscience and principles. So there's a lot of rebelliousness. There's a lot of lawlessness. There's people, but notice, what do they want? They want paper currency and equal distribution of property. So what is her concern at this point in time? Some of the people who want the American Revolution, what do they want to do with the American Revolution? They want to take it even further than just changing the government. They want it to look completely different. They want there to be paper currency, and by then, I know that doesn't sound like a big deal to us, but think about back then. You don't have paper money, and all of a sudden you're saying you want the government to print paper money. A lot of people thought that was some kind of scheme. Like, well, how do I know it's real? How do I know that it's really worth anything? So that was she thought that was crazy. I mean, you can tell by her letter. She's like, I can't believe people are even saying that, which of course, like 100 years later, it's not a big deal, but at that point in time it was. And then the other thing was wanting equal distribution of land. And again, think about what we were talking about earlier, that Jefferson talked a lot about, look, you really want people to have land. It really helps people. And she's saying, well, look, I know, but how do you make it equal? How do you give everyone the same amount of land? Like, that's kind of a crazy thought to her, is how would you divide it up and make it equal? Like, people are saying crazy stuff. That's basically what she's saying. People are saying crazy things. So she's warning that the American Revolution might be going too far, that people are kind of acting crazy. But notice both of her arguments there, paper money and equal distribution of property, both deal with economic issues, right? So that's another argument towards, or another document we can use to make an economic argument. And by the way, notice, she's not making a positive one. She's saying the American Revolution might cause us to do some crazy things with our economy. So it is an economic source, but she is absolutely making the case that it is not a good thing, that people are kind of going crazy with this. Okay, I'm going to skip document H. I just don't want us to run out of time here, because I want to be able to go back over some of this. And I want to jump down to the Federalist Papers, because they love, I'm going to go ahead and take a second and just say this for a second. They love to use a clip from the Federalist Papers. So just to make sure that we got that covered, when the Constitution comes out, a lot of states don't know if they want to ratify it. Remember, the states have to ratify it, or it doesn't become the official Constitution. And so James Madison, John Jay, and Alexander Hamilton write the Federalist Papers, and it's just letters where they say why the Constitution is good. Why is it a good thing? So if you see some clip from the Federalist Papers, just please remember they're defending the Constitution. They're supporting it. Okay, so you might see that being used no matter what the topic is, because they love to use these. So Federalist 51. This is one of the most famous Federalist Papers. Ambition must be made to counteract ambition. It may be a reflection on human nature that such devices should be necessary to control the abuses of government. But what is government itself but a greatest of all reflections on human nature? If men were angels, no government would be necessary. If framing a government which is to be administered by men over men, the great difficulty lies in this. You must first enable the government to control the governed, and in the next place, oblige it to control itself. Okay, so this is honestly, it's kind of a deep concept here, but let's just break it. Let's just make it as simple as we can. So he's saying the government needs to be set up so that they have power, but then very quickly you have to make sure that power is checked. Okay, so first of all, categorically, political, right? I mean, it's just talking about government. So this is another source we would put in political. The historical context, of course, the American Revolution's going on. He thinks the British government's out of control. He thinks they have too much power. So he's trying to say, here's how we set up this new government to not be out of control. So who's his intended audience?
Voters.
Voters, yeah. Voters from every state. He's trying to convince voters, delegates, okay, to support the Constitution. So it would come into fruition, so that it would be the governing document, okay? Purpose, he wants the Constitution to pass. His point of view, remember, James Madison's often, called the father of the Constitution because he's the one who took the notes. He's very influential in it. Of course, he is very much a defender of the Constitution, of the way it's set up, and also the belief that you have to have checks on government. And so that's kind of his perspective. So I would put that in the political category. We got one more, and we've made it through them, and then I want to kind of give an overview, and let's talk about thesis statement. Document J here. This is from a speech. This is Molly Wallace, her valedictory speech at the Young Ladies Academy of Philadelphia, 1792. So it's a little bit later. What then must my situation be when my sex, my youth, and inexperience all conspire to make me tremble at the task which I have undertaken? But the friendly encouragement which I behold in most every countenance enables me to overcome difficulties that would otherwise be insurmountable. With some, however, it has been made a question whether we ought ever to appear in so public a manner, our natural timidity, the domestic situation to which, by nature and custom, we seem destined, are urged as arguments against what I now have undertaken. Many sarcastical observations have been handed out against female oratory. But to what do they amount? Do they not plainly inform us that because we are females, we ought to therefore to be deprived of what is the most effectual means of acquiring a just, natural, graceful delivery? No one will pretend to deny that we should be taught to read in the best manner. And if to read, why not speak? So plainly, what's Molly Wallace saying? What are people trying to do to women in the 1790s? What's she saying here? They're telling women they shouldn't be speaking in public. Okay, that especially talking about politics, that's something they shouldn't be doing. And she's making the argument, well, so first of all, like, why would you make this argument at this point in time? This is really the most important argument to say, so after all that we've been through, American Revolution, so people have their rights, you're going to turn around and say, I shouldn't be speaking in public? Like, that seems like a really weird argument to make after you just made arguments about individual rights and freedom. But then her last point, I think, is really good as well, which is, hey, we've tried to encourage as a society people to be involved, people to learn, we try to make things publicized so that they can be well read. And so if you want us to read all this stuff, if you want us to learn all of this stuff, why wouldn't you want us to speak about all this stuff? Like, it doesn't make sense. So she really points out two flaws in the other side's argument, which is, how can you talk about individual rights and just not include women? By the way, guess who else makes this argument in the late 1700s? African Americans, right? They're going, hello, so you did all this and you still don't think we have individual rights? So African Americans, women, both point out this inconsistency here. And then she points out just the inconsistency of, okay, well, what am I learning for? Okay, what am I reading all these things for if I'm not going to talk about them? Which, by the way, I like that argument too, and she also noticed, I like to point this out to high school students too. She points out that people are looking down on her because she's a woman and because she's young. Did you notice that at the very beginning? Because of her youth, people don't think she has anything to say, and she's like, okay, whatever. I think that's always important that you see that. In world history, you see people going back to ancient Rome, ancient Greece, women that are like, look, give me the opportunity and I'll show you that just because I'm a woman, just because I'm young, doesn't mean that I can't have a major impact on my society. This is just another great example of that. But what would you put this? Political, social, or economic?
Social.
Yep, I think the most logical fit here is social. I mean, you could make the argument political if you wanted to, and just say, hey, she wants these rights kind of given to her directly through government. But at the same time, she's kind of like looking at society, going like, our society doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense if you do these things and then turn around and tell women, young women, that they shouldn't be allowed to participate in these ways. So now I want us to take kind of a high overview look. So from my notes, which I just lost my pencil somewhere. There you go. From my notes, it looks like we've got 1, 2, 3 social. We have 1, 2, 3 economic. I didn't read the one I didn't read. I would have put in economics. That would be 3 for economic. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4 for political. So again, we did a good job just walking through it and making those arguments there and breaking those into 2. Now notice, by the way, that took us a long time, right? So I figure it took us about 30 minutes to go down through those sources. You are going to have to do this very quickly. So in the upcoming weeks, I'm going to really push you guys on how to do this in a quicker amount of time. I'm going to show you some tricks on how to do that, but I wanted to walk through slowly how you look at a document, how you think about it, some ways to pull things out. I always have students who go, look, it's just a picture. Like, what am I supposed to do with a picture of a medal, you know? But notice what we did, okay? We really thought through, what are they trying to say? What else is going on? What do we know about this person? That's the way to really dig into these documents. So after you do all this, because by 2 weeks, you're going to do that in like 10 minutes. You're going to do what we just did in about 10 minutes, okay? And then what you've got to do is you've got to organize it, okay? So what exactly economic argument are we going to make? Okay, in that paragraph, what are we going to say about the, let me go ahead and pull back up the initial question, right? That's kind of important that we always remember. To what extent did the American Revolution fundamentally change society? And remember, we're focusing on political, social, economic. So let's start with political. How did the American Revolution change politics, specifically in the sources that we are using here? So what did that show here? How have politics changed because of the American Revolution? Number 1, people are not just going to listen to government officials. Now, there's a good part of that, right? That second source where he was like all fired up, remember, about, hey, we'll just throw them all out. Very, very fired up, very, very direct, that they want to be in control of what their politics are like. I would use those sources and say, look, that's the way American society is a lot of time, right? You know, we really want to be able to vote. We want to be able to have say in who we put in charge. What else might we say about the way it changed politics? And try to use the sources from what we've just talked about. Can you think of another argument you could make there from what we've said today? Political. What about the Indians? What do you think their argument could be for kind of the political thing here? So what are they trying to do?
They're trying to be included.
I think you could make that argument. You could say, look, we have sources here. Source, I can't remember what source that was. I think it was G. We document G shows us that going back to the American Revolution, Native Americans have tried to sign treaties with the new government and tried not to take sides in the political winds, right? So they've tried to compromise. So you could use that as an example of Native American tribes. And by the way, they try to compromise all the way, even after the Civil War, even after they choose a side, they go right back in the late 1800s and go, look, hey, can we not make an agreement here? Can we not sign something that's kind of in the middle of what we want? So the compromising of the Native American tribes, I think you could point that out. But I also think, the first point we made is a really strong one, which is people wanted say in the government, and they didn't trust government officials that didn't answer directly to the people. They just did not trust that. That goes all the way back to this point in time. Let's shift on to the societal. What would our societal argument be? To what extent did the American Revolution fundamentally change the society of America?
You can use the first document, the picture, and the very last one, the speech, to say like women are no longer being like forced to stay at home. They're going to the forefront to fight for rights and to be part of the things that are happening.
Absolutely. I would say that women, that you can no longer tell women that they don't have that individual right anymore because of what has been set up. Now, I guess you can. I guess the government does do that, but you're now going to have this large block of women that go, hold on,
We helped you win an American Revolution. We're really engaging in the political process. You could even, if you wanted to, use that letter from Abigail Adams. I mean, look at this woman that's going, hey, y'all need to do something about these guys that are going crazy down here that are saying they want paper money and whatnot. Here she is, very engaged in the political process, and they listen to her. So you have 3 examples there of women that are saying, hey, this isn't right. Like, we're not going to do this anymore. You have a picture that shows, or a drawing that shows that women are beginning to have more of a role here, even in military affairs. So yeah, I would use all those documents to show there is a huge societal shift from women being included in aspects of society that you see now because of the American Revolution. It's very different. Okay. And last, economic. You know, we had a few sources there that we had in economic. What might the argument be? And I'll kind of leave this picture up as we're talking about economic. What could you say is the economic change that comes out of the American Revolution?
Well, with the metal, you can say the American people are now split between what they want to do economically. The North wants to be more industrialized and the South wants to be more agricultural. And because of that, they've put a shift between the two people, a split.
Yep. I think that's a great point to make in that paragraph, to say, listen, you know, after this, now that we're our own country, the argument begins, what kind of country are we going to look like? Specifically, what kind of economic system are we going to have? If you remember, the whole reason the Constitutional Convention occurs is because when they meet in Annapolis, the states are mad about commerce. That's why they call Alexander Hamilton to come over and run the meeting, because they're going, look, when we try to trade with another state, they're telling us they're not going to take our money, or they're telling us they're going to hit us with this tax just because we crossed into their state. And so one of the biggest arguments for why we all needed to come together as one country out of the Articles of Confederation was Alexander Hamilton going, yeah, well, you know what? We got to get on the same page. You guys can't be doing your own thing. And so that conversation is shown right here with those documents. People are already making the argument on what society should look like. Again, you didn't hear that before the American Revolution. Nobody really had an argument about what America should look like as an entire economic system. People just were doing their own thing. But that's something that came out of this time as well. Is, hey, if we're going to fight for our freedom, or we're going to be our own country, what do we look like when we become our own country? Okay, guys, wrapping all of that up, you would put all of that together in a thesis statement that would look something like this. The American Revolution had a major impact on multiple aspects of the American society. Society looked forever different with the inclusion of women. The economic system will be debated for the next century. And which one am I missing? And politically, individuals will be empowered like never before. Therefore, the American Revolution had a dramatic impact on all aspects of society. That's your first paragraph. That's your thesis statement. And then your body paragraphs are what we just talked through together. Okay. So again, for today, for those of you that are doing the assignments, and I'm proud of you that are doing the assignments to get your grade up. I have the DBQ attached. Again, write out that as an essay and turn that in for today. And again, if you're taking the AP exam, I highly encourage you guys to do that. And again, I am more than happy to look over those essays for you once you're finished and give you feedback. But this is what a lot of the reviews are going to look like from here on out. So I'm going to go over them with you. I'm going to give them to you before, so you guys can start looking at these documents. And again, if you want to write the essay before the call and share it with me and I can talk you through it, or if you want to do it afterwards and let me look at it and give you guys some feedback, any of those things are good. But again, if I had to give you a tip for at this point in time how to be studying for that AP exam, I would be looking at the review videos. I would be going back over the things that you don't remember, and I would be practicing document-based questions. And I have one that I shared with you yesterday, and we have this one today. Any kind of practice or questions you guys have for me over those things, I think that's the best way to continue to prepare for that exam now. So any questions, comments here at the end of the call? Okay. All right. Looks like Antoine's out, so I think it's time to end the call. Thank you guys for everything. I'm going to continue. And guys, I do apologize. Several of you reached out to me and were like, hey, I didn't get that last email.
It's really frustrating on my end that my email is getting blocked by some, in some of these instances. But please reach out to me or your teacher, and I'll make sure that you're getting this information. Thank you again for joining the call and your participation. Again, reach out to any of us if you need any help moving forward. So thank you guys. Have a good weekend. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll talk to you guys on Tuesday.
Bye, guys.
Later.